My name's Mark, I'm 56, and I've been called a lot of things in my life. Dependable, stubborn, sometimes a bit too generous for my own good. But no one has ever accused me of not showing up, especially not for my son, Alex. I've shown up for every skin knee, every science fair, every school pickup. And when his mom left and remarried, I still showed up. Even when she and her new husband, Greg, started playing house and slowly rewrote history to make it look like I was some side character in my own kid's life. I swallowed a lot of pride over the years. I figured as long as Alex was happy and taken care of, I could stomach being in the background. I'd get my moments. Or so I thought. The wedding was supposed to be one of those moments. It started innocently enough. Alex called me one evening about 9 months before the wedding, buzzing with excitement. "Dad, we're doing a spring wedding. I want it outdoors, lots of greenery, real classic stuff." I smiled just hearing his voice so full of life. "That sounds amazing, Bud," I said, already reaching for my checkbook. I didn't wait for him to ask. I just told him, "Whatever you need, I've got you." What I didn't realize was that whatever you need would turn into everything. Venue deposit? Me. Photographer? Me. Custom floral arch? Guess who? It was never outright demanded. Alex always sounded sheepish and grateful, but the requests stacked up like bricks, each one a little heavier than the last. I convinced myself it was fine. I wanted to help. I was the dad, after all. But as the big day got closer, I started to notice little things. Things that didn't sit right. The invitation came and my name was listed, barely. "With love from Greg and Sarah Williams," it read in looping gold script, with a tiny line underneath, and Mark. No last name. No title. Just an afterthought. Then the seating chart arrived. I was slotted in the third row initially, which I didn't mind. Close enough. But 2 weeks out, I got a call from the wedding planner, some perky 20-something who probably thought I was the hired help. "Hi, Mr. Mark. We had to adjust the seating a bit. You'll now be in row F, just behind extended family. Hope that's okay." I wanted to say, "No, it's not okay." But instead I said, "Sure. Whatever works." And then I hung up and stared at the wall for a long time. Greg, the stepfather, had been stepping into my shoes for years. At first it was little things, teaching Alex how to drive, helping him choose colleges. I let it go. Divorce is complicated. Kids get caught in the middle. I didn't want to make it harder. But this wedding was becoming a circus, and I was starting to feel like the unpaid stagehand no one thanked at the end of the show. Then came the rehearsal dinner. It was held at a vineyard, classy, high-end, and of course, funded by yours truly. I walked in wearing my best suit, bottle of wine in hand, only to find Greg already holding court at the main table. "Mark," he called out with a grin that felt a little too rehearsed. "So glad you could make it." Could make it. I paid for it. Throughout dinner, he told story after story about raising Alex, throwing around memories I'd never even heard of, some of which I was sure weren't even real. He toasted Alex and his fiancée, Chloe, with a long speech that made it sound like he'd been the one tucking Alex in every night, not me. And when it was my turn to say a few words, the microphone wasn't passed to me. It wasn't even offered. I just sat there, gripping the stem of my wine glass until my knuckles turned white. Chloe's parents patted Greg on the back like he was some kind of hero. Sarah, my ex, beamed beside him, draped in the kind of smug satisfaction that said this is the man who raised your son right. And Alex? He didn't say anything. He looked happy, content, like he didn't notice the absence of my voice. I told myself to wait for the actual wedding. Maybe that would be different. It wasn't. I arrived early the morning of, ready to help with setup. I figured I'd at least be useful. But when I got to the venue, the staff looked confused. "Are you with the catering team?" one of them asked. Another handed me a clipboard. "Here, you can help direct parking." I didn't correct them. I just went and sat in my car for 20 minutes until the ceremony started. The music swelled. The guests took their seats. I was in row F, just behind Great Aunt Patty, who spent the whole service leaning over to whisper that she thought I was taller on Facebook. From where I sat, I could barely see the vows. Greg was up there front and center, grinning like he'd won the lottery. He signed the marriage certificate, gave the toast, danced the first dance with Alex's mom while I watched from a folding chair near the bar. Every time I raised my hand to wave or say something, someone else stepped in. A friend, a cousin, the DJ. I was a ghost at my own son's wedding, but I smiled. I clapped. I posed for pictures, even when they shoved me to the edge of the frame. I told myself over and over, this day isn't about you. And I almost believed it until the end of the night. People were clearing out. Staff started folding chairs. I stood alone near the fountain, sipping what remained of my flat champagne, when Greg walked up. He clapped a hand on my shoulder, gave me that smug little grin, and said it, soft and casual like it was nothing. "Thanks for covering everything, old man." Something in me cracked. He didn't say, "Thank you for helping." He didn't say, "We couldn't have done it without you." No. He called me old man like I was the valet. Like this had all been expected, and I had served my purpose. I didn't say a word. I just looked at him, nodded once, and walked away. Back at my car, I sat in the dark for a long time. My phone buzzed, messages from relatives, wedding photos, a video of Greg's speech. I ignored them. Instead, I opened my banking app. I had set up automatic transfers to cover the rest of the wedding costs, the honeymoon package, the vendor tips, final venue fees. None of them had cleared yet, and that's when I made the call. I didn't hesitate. My fingers moved fast, too fast for second thoughts. I called the bank's fraud line, not because anything fraudulent had happened, but because that's the only number where you can reach an actual human at that hour. A woman named Michelle answered. Friendly voice, chipper, like she had no idea she was about to become part of a family soap opera. "Hi." "Yes," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I need to freeze some pending transfers." "No, not all of them, just the ones scheduled for Monday." "Yeah, the large ones." She asked me to verify my identity. I rattled off the answers like a robot. My heart was thudding in my chest, not with panic, but with something I hadn't felt in a long time, control. "May I ask why, sir?" she said once we were done. "Just to note it on your account." I paused. I almost laughed. "Change of plans," I said simply. "The wedding's over." She confirmed the transfers were on hold, and I hung up. I sat there a while longer, the cool air slipping in through the cracked window. I watched the last of the guests shuffle out, tipsy and oblivious. Greg was still inside somewhere, probably holding court and basking in the spotlight. Alex was with Chloe, posing for the last few professional shots. I watched my son, my boy, from a distance, and for the first time, I didn't feel like his dad. I felt like a sponsor. I'd been funding this whole fantasy like some invisible investor. I paid for the cake they smeared on each other's faces. I paid for the chairs they didn't offer me. I paid for the music I was too far away to hear. And all the while, everyone around me smiled and nodded like that was normal. Like I was supposed to be grateful to sit in the back and watch my role get erased. But I wasn't angry. Not yet. The anger came the next morning. I woke up early, like always. Muscle memory from decades of early commutes and weekend soccer games. I made coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and opened my email. The first was from the venue. Final payment reminder, due today. The second, from the honeymoon travel agency, complete with a PDF itinerary and a polite note. Please confirm release of funds so we can secure the upgraded suite for Mr. and Mrs. Williams. Williams. Not Morgan. Not my name. Not my legacy. Greg's. I stared at the screen, stunned. Even the honeymoon reservation had been booked under his name. My bank account, his credit. That's when I knew I hadn't just been sidelined. I'd been replaced. Everything clicked into place then. The way Sarah always introduced Greg as Alex's real father, at parties, always with a wink like it was a joke. The way Alex had started calling him dad a few years ago, casually, in front of me, then pretending not to notice the way I went quiet. The way Greg had slowly become the point of contact for all the wedding vendors, all the family emails, all the decisions. They hadn't just overlooked me. They had rewritten me. I spent the rest of the morning reviewing the contracts. I still had the originals, PDFs, scanned receipts, all of it. I may have been naive, but I wasn't stupid. Everything had been in my name. Every vendor, every deposit, every planned gratuity. Some of the final payments hadn't even been invoiced yet. I called the travel agency first. Told them there was a mistake. I said I wouldn't be releasing the funds after all, that the reservation needed to be updated. If they wanted payment, it would have to be under a different name. A legal one. Mine. They said they'd have to call the couple. I said, be my guest. Then I called the caterer. Told them the final check would not be coming through unless I got an updated invoice. Same with the lighting company, the string quartet, the photographer. And each time, I said the same thing. Let them know Mark Morgan has questions. By noon, the calls started coming in. The first was from Sarah. "You can't be serious," she snapped, skipping hello entirely. "You're trying to embarrass your own son?" "No," I said. "But I'm done being embarrassed by you. You made a promise." "No." I made a contribution. You decided it came with no say, no seat, and no respect. She sputtered something, but I ended the call. Then came Chloe's dad. Nice guy, or so I'd thought. Look, Mark, can we talk about this? He said. You're going to ruin their honeymoon over a few bruised feelings? I didn't get my feelings bruised, I said. I got erased. Alex didn't call until that night. I stared at the screen when his name lit up. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Dad, he said, uncertain. I didn't reply. I heard about the bank stuff. The honeymoon, the vendors. What's going on? There was genuine confusion in his voice, and for a split second, I felt a pang of guilt. Until I remembered how he'd hugged Greg at the altar, how he'd raised his glass to him with tears in his eyes, and never once looked my way. I'm just settling up, I said. But you said you'd cover it. I did. And I did cover a lot. But apparently that wasn't enough for a mention, or a seat near the front, or even a name on the marriage license. There was silence. I didn't know. That makes two of us. He went quiet for a long time. I'm sorry, he said finally. And I believed that he meant it. But it didn't change anything. Because the moment Greg called me old man, like I was just a wallet in a suit, something inside me shifted. I had spent years letting people take from me in the name of being the bigger person. I had been quiet. I had smiled. I had clapped. I had paid. But not anymore. And the best part? They still had no idea what else I had planned. I didn't tell Alex everything on that call. I let him sit in the discomfort of it. Let him twist a little, like I twisted in that back row, pretending to enjoy the show. He asked if we could talk in person, said he'd swing by sometime this week, maybe bring Chloe. I told him to text first. I wanted time to think, to decide how much truth I was willing to lay bare. Because what they didn't know was this: the wedding wasn't just funded by my bank account. It was organized, contracted, and legally signed off under my business name, Morgan Solutions, my consulting firm. I'd written it all off as a sponsored event, under the umbrella of company outreach and partnership branding. It was clever accounting, sure, but also necessary at the time. And that meant the ownership of a lot of those services, photos, footage, even the venue's post-event publishing rights, technically belonged to me. Not Alex. Not Chloe. Not Greg. And I wasn't done yet. The next morning, I dug into the files again. I hadn't looked at them too closely since the chaos of booking things in the spring, but now I had a different set of eyes. Focused, deliberate, and just petty enough to start drawing lines through the fine print. The photographer, for example, had a clause buried deep in the agreement. Client retains full discretion on final image release, including approval or disapproval of publication or personal use if payment is not completed within 30 days of final event. Guess who hadn't been paid in full? I shot off a quick email. The videographer was a friend of mine, an old army buddy I'd hired when no one else answered fast enough. We hadn't talked in a while, but I knew he respected loyalty. I texted him, "Hey, hope you're good. I'd like to hold off on giving the couple the final wedding video for now. There's more going on than you realize." He responded, "Say no more. Got your back." I leaned back in my chair after that one domino at a time. By Thursday, the calls started getting frantic. This time, it was Chloe. She never called me before, always filtered communication through Alex or her parents. But now she was the one calling me. "Hi, Mr. Morgan," she started, syrupy sweet. "We're just trying to figure out what's going on with the photo release and the video. We're supposed to be doing a wedding announcement this weekend for social media, and the photographer said they're waiting on your approval? Was that a mistake?" "Nope," I said. "That's correct." A long pause. "Oh, okay. Will that be coming soon?" "Depends. Have you talked to Greg recently?" There was an awkward laugh. "Not really? I mean, we thanked him at the wedding, if that's what you mean." "No," I said. "I mean, did he tell you he thanked me by calling me old man and walking off with all the credit while I sat 6 rows back in a suit I couldn't even afford 5 years ago?" She was quiet now, probably realizing for the first time that I wasn't just Alex's dad in the vague, distant way she'd always assumed. I was the reason they had a wedding at all. "I didn't know," she said quietly. "Right. Okay. Maybe we should meet. We'll see." I ended the call before it got messy. I wasn't looking for an apology from her. Not yet. I was still in the stage of collecting silence, letting it pile up, letting them sit in the absence of answers. You'd be surprised how loud silence gets when people are used to everything just working. Friday came, and I got a knock on my office door. I didn't expect it, but there he was. Greg, wearing his usual smug half-smile, dressed in that slightly too tight blazer he always wore when he wanted to look distinguished. He walked in like we were old pals. Mark, he said, pulling the door shut behind him. Look, I think there's been some confusion. Is that what we're calling it now? He sighed, took a seat across from my desk like he owned the place. Look, I get it. You feel slighted. But we both know you did what any dad would do. Greg, I interrupted. Stop. Just stop. You walked over to me at the end of my son's wedding, patted me on the shoulder, and thanked me like I was the caterer. You didn't introduce me once. You didn't mention me in your toast. And you watched them list your name on that certificate like I never existed. He shrugged. It's just tradition. I've been in his life for a long time. We didn't mean anything by it. That's exactly the problem, I said, voice cold. You didn't mean anything. And now you want me to smile and sign checks like it's all good. He leaned forward, smirking again. So what? You're holding their wedding media hostage? Not very fatherly of you. That's when I stood. I wasn't loud. I didn't shout. I just looked down at him with the calm you get when you've already made your decision. You think you replaced me, I said. But Greg, you were just a stand-in. A seat filler in the story of my son's life. And now the bills come due. His smirk faded. I let that sit in the air. Heavy. Then I walked around the desk, opened the door, and gestured for him to leave. He did. But he looked back once, like he wanted to say something, or maybe finally realized I wasn't bluffing. Too late. Because what they really didn't know was this. I'd also retained creative control over the wedding video's final cut. And I had just received the raw footage. Everything, every toast, every awkward exchange, every stage photo where I was cropped out, every clip where Greg positioned himself like a second coming of Ward Cleaver while I fetched drinks and smiled from the sidelines. And I had one more phone call to make. But that's where things start to get interesting. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of guilt. No, I was past that. I stayed up because something in me was alive again. For years, I'd let people edit me out of my own life. I kept peace. I kept quiet. I kept writing checks. But now I was scripting the final act, and I wasn't going to miss a single detail. I sat in my office surrounded by invoices, notes, digital footage pulled frame by frame from the videographer's raw dump. My son's wedding in 4K, every hug I didn't get, every glance that went past me like I was scenery. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was surgical. The next morning, I called Chris, the editor I'd hired to cut together the wedding video. Hey, I said. Quick change of plans. I've got a list of timestamps for you. Anything from 12:02 to 12:09? Cut it. Toasts? I want mine added in, but I'll send you a voiceover instead. Don't worry, I'll keep it classy. But the part where Greg calls Alex the son I always dreamed of? Yeah, trim that. Chris paused. You sure? That's like the big emotional moment. I'm sure. Also, at the end, I want the credits to roll with a note, made possible by Mark Morgan. Bold letters. Center screen. No music. He laughed, thinking I was joking. I wasn't. By Sunday, the final draft was done. I reviewed it once, then sent the private link to Alex and Chloe. I didn't include a message, just the link. 4 hours later, Alex called. Dad, what is this? A wedding video? I said calmly. Edited by the guy who paid for the whole thing. Figured I might want a version where I actually exist. He was quiet. I waited. I mean, come on. You didn't have to do that. Didn't I? I said. Because when your mom rewrote history and Greg signed the certificate with his name under father of the groom, nobody said a word. When I sat 6 rows back and nobody even mentioned me in a toast, you didn't say a word. When I opened my wallet to give you a dream wedding, you let someone else take the credit. So don't tell me what I had to do. You already showed me where I stand. He tried again. Look, I messed up. I should have. Should have what? Remembered I existed? You didn't forget, Alex. You chose. And that's fine. I just made a choice too. But what about the vendors? Mom said you canceled everything. The florist threatening to sue us. No, I didn't cancel anything, I said. I just froze the money. Told them to send the bill directly to the Williams household. Since they seem to think Greg's the patriarch now, he can foot the final costs. Or your mom can. I heard him sigh. They can't afford it. Neither could I said, sharper than I intended. But I made it work. Because I thought I was doing it for my son, not for an audience. Another long silence. He finally muttered, I don't even know what to say. I did. Say goodbye, Alex. And I hung up. I thought I'd feel something after that, relief, grief, triumph, but I didn't. I just stood there for a moment, phone in hand, feeling nothing. And honestly, that was worse. 2 weeks passed. Then 3. Radio silence. No calls. No texts. No attempts at fixing anything. I assumed that was it. Until one evening, there was a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. It was past dinner and already dark outside. When I opened it, I saw Chloe. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks, messy bun, dark circles, that flat kind of smile people wear when they're running on fumes. "Hi," she said. I stepped aside. She walked in without waiting. "I just want to talk," she said, settling onto my couch like she'd been here before. Not ask for money. Not ask for favors. Just talk. I didn't offer coffee. I just sat in the armchair across from her. She took a deep breath. "Alex isn't talking to his mom right now," she started. "Or Greg. The fallout's been bad. His mom's furious, Greg's humiliated, and his aunt told everyone at brunch last weekend that you hacked the wedding video like some bitter teenager." I didn't reply. She kept going. "But I watched the video. Twice, actually. The version you edited. At first, I thought it was mean. Petty. But then, I noticed something. I raised an eyebrow. I noticed how often you weren't in the frame. How people kept stepping in front of you. How no one even looked at you when they were saying their vows. And then I noticed the way you smiled anyway. How you stood off to the side, clapping. Holding the umbrella when it started to drizzle, even though no one asked you to. I watched your face, Mark. And I realized, we forgot you. Not just at the wedding, but before that. In everything. Still, I didn't say a word." She wiped at her eyes, embarrassed. "I don't blame you for pulling back. I really don't. But I just wanted you to know. I see you now. I really do." She stood up, straightened her coat. "Alex wants to come too. But I told him he needs to wait. Because if you ever give him another chance, it's going to be on your terms." She turned to go, then paused at the door. "By the way," she added, "that thanks for covering everything, old man, line?" Greg said that in front of the videographer too. It made the raw footage. "That's probably why the video guy sent it to you. Said he figured you deserved to see the truth." And then she left. I sat there a long time afterward, thinking about all the things I'd done right. And all the ways I've been written out anyway. I didn't cry. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt tired, but not weak. Because sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is finally stop giving people the pieces of you they never respected in the first place. The final bill for the wedding ended up going unpaid. Greg apparently tried to negotiate down some vendors. Chloe's parents chipped in for some. But the venue? The caterers? The florist with the $3,000 invoice? They took legal action. The last I heard, Sarah was trying to file a claim with her homeowner's equity to cover some of it. Greg stopped showing up to family dinners. Alex moved out of the apartment his mom leased them and got a cheaper place, said he wanted to figure some stuff out on his own. I didn't ask what that meant. A month later, I got a letter. Just a short one. No long apology. No grand gesture. Just Alex's handwriting on a plain white card. "I don't know if I deserve to be your son anymore, but I want to try being the kind of man you don't have to erase." I haven't replied yet. Maybe I will someday. But for now, I've still got the original wedding video. The real one. And I keep it in a drawer, not to watch, but to remind myself. I may have been silent for a long time, but that doesn't mean I was ever invisible. And I won't be again.